Hey guys, welcome to another episode. This is going to be a low elo episode. It will be relatively short. I'm featuring one game. It's not the most interesting game, but the other one is a lot more complicated, and I'm not really sure I want to present that as a low elo game. I might do it just because I thought it was pretty interesting. But first we're going to go over this game. It's pretty straightforward. It's not very complicated, so I thought it would be a good simple way to explain some of the approach you should have. And also I was there giving him advice at the time, but there were things he would have missed, and I wanted to present you some of these ideas and advice that I gave him while he was playing, as well as some extra details. And at the end, we will cover one more game that was submitted, but it was really short, so I'll just go over it really quickly, just talk about a couple moments in it, and then from here we'll just move on. So here, as you can see, this is my friend Alex from before, and he's facing Monofiora. As you can see, apparently I guess low elo players like Monofiora. It seems to be more common. But anyways, so here, this is a special matchup because this is a matchup where you're not going to obviously care about having units. Vengeance is really good because as long as they don't have mana for Unyielding, the Vengeance will be able to reset their Fiora, make them get a new one. Vile Feast, very questionable. Avalanche also doesn't really do anything, but you want to keep the Vengeance so that as long as they try to buff their Fiora and tap below Unyielding range, you can just Vengeance and reset. Because after all, this is Demacia Freljord, and their only answer to Vengeance is Unyielding. So in the early turns, you want to make sure you hold, or I should say in the mid turn, so that basically as soon as they play something like Standalone, or invest a lot of mana to buff their Fiora, you just snipe it and force a new one. And otherwise, you can just tank 3 damage like here and there, like just doesn't matter. Alright, so here you'll see okay, so right here Alex plays Entreat. Don't do it. I mean, you have the mana next turn. There's no real reason to play Entreat now. And like, what if you might top that Catalyst, and then there's just no reason to do it preemptively. This is a simple rule, everyone. If I think I've mentioned it before, but just it's a good thing to keep track of and take note of. So here, our opponent does play the Fiora. Obviously, they play an Entreat, or they might not. They could also save their mana, which I actually think is technically correct. Actually, no, it's definitely correct. Because we're not spending our mana, and they're happy. Their mana is all focused on combat tricks, so they definitely don't want to be spending their mana like that. So, if you're playing your Fiora in those situations, that is a moment you should learn from. You should not do that. If your opponent's board is empty and you're not burning much mana, especially just don't play your Fiora. So here, you don't Vengeance. The reason you don't Vengeance is because even though you could, yes, kill the Fiora, they'll just replace it. You want to use this Vengeance as a reset button. For example, once they invest into the Fiora, once they get stacks on the Fiora, even if you allow them to, you have this Vengeance as a almost hard reset button that is only countered by Unyielding, which you can get around in most situations. So just start with the box, see what they do. Try to get them to tap low on mana. Maybe trade resources here, because the box is never gonna do anything else. This is the best the box is ever gonna get. So you should save your Vengeance, trade cards here. You don't want to play anything else either. So here they have Elixir, which means yes, they retain Unyielding mana, but it's not like you're going to Vengeance either. So basically, they can't spend any of their mana, so they're just dealing 3 damage per turn. Nothing to be scared of. So here, you can just open pass, keep Vengeance mana. You're okay with tanking 3 damage every 2 rounds. Wait, did they just play Entreat? Sorry, I missed that. Okay, so this should be... Okay, so now they have a second Fiora, we know that, or Riposte if we don't kill this. And in this position, here is a low elo mistake by the opponent. When they play the Entreat, they should soft pass. They can see that we're not doing anything. The thing is, if you're gonna play a burst spell where there's no like nothing that you benefit from immediately getting more slow actions in, just don't be in such a rush to play your cards. Like, it's not like if he passes, we're gonna play like Stony Suppressor or something and make his standalone more expensive. No, this is a mistake. You should always pass back. And if we return to the past, then he probably should even pass it back again and just not play standalone at all. Even maybe open attack with a standalone for 6 damage. I don't know. Or just pass, or standalone and pass and see if we want to play units. I don't know. They're not gonna be winning by killing 4 units with Fiora. So what they want to do is be putting pressure on our face. But here, they already played their entreat, and we don't really want to play units either. So there's no real reason for them to play the standalone right away. You should always burst pass in situations like that. So now we are happy to vengeance this, because now obviously, first of all, they spent their mana. And they can't unyielding. If we just pass, they'll attack for 6 damage, and we'll never be able to do anything to this buffed Fiora. But now they've invested standalone, and now we're happy to reset the Fiora. Okay, so now they have 2 Fioras in their hand and 5 other cards, and we can just pass pretty much. So in this position, they could have Sharp Sight. There's just but we're okay with them having Sharp Sight because we can Glimpse. So you can just play the Trundle safely, since you're going to need the pillars for your Lysandra. Your win condition is going to be basically Lysandra, Watcher, and then attack, and then prevent them from being able to survive just by... Make it so that they can't win by just reshuffling Fioras. So here, when we play the Trundle, they won't be able to attack. So this is the best time to play Trundle. Even if they eventually get 1 stack for their Fiora out of the Trundle, they're not going to be able to turn that into a win. We have to be able to try to win ourselves, obviously, and this is just the best time you can get to play Trundle. Just move forward a little bit. Okay, so they don't choose the Sharp Sight attack. They're probably afraid of things like Vile Feast, Troll Chant. Well, Vile Feast shouldn't be a threat considering their deck, but... Okay, so you don't attack here. You just pass. You know that all of their cards are combat tricks. Like, first of all, you don't even have an answer for Riposte, which you know he has one of, and so you just don't attack here. You just pass. And our opponent doesn't want to play Unyielding here, obviously, because we could have a second Vengeance. They're probably kind of paranoid of that right now. I'm not sure, but they might, if they feel the sense of urgency, they probably should, and just, but I mean, I guess they might not feel the sense of urgency just yet. I'm not sure. But again, so there's just no good play here from this perspective. So the open passes just should be natural. You could play the entreat, but that doesn't really do anything either. Like, you know, it. Oh, also, actually, it is important to note that we do have Lysandra's Entomb. So after we play the Lysandra, we will be able to obliterate the Fiora for basically 1 attack token of ours. And once they lose the Fiora for that attack token, well, yeah, they will be able to play the second Fiora, but that's pretty much just it. There's almost nothing to be scared of, because first of all, their Judgment isn't going to do anything. They're not going to be able to reshuffle their Fioras if they play a second Fiora, which also means they're not going to have units. And so you might not even need the Watcher win con. It's just everything's going to be really awkward for them. So here, actually, this is another misplay by the opponent. You should never... this is really bad. You don't want to be wasting... First of all, this removes his ability to reshuffle Fioras if the time comes, which... it's true that it's not the primary concern because he'll probably lose anyway, but this is just really weak and easy to counter. But depends on what his hand is. Maybe he has like multiple single combats, but if we just have a Vile Feast, this just becomes awkward instantly. So yeah, for example, right now we could have Ice Shard, Withering Wail, Vile Feast to counter his second single combat. He would need to have a second single combat and like a sharp side or something, but this is just not good enough. Like this just gets countered by Vile Feast. Just not good enough. And we're okay with this. You know, they tapped out of mana. So here, we just play the second Trundle, so we have more Ice Pillars. Yeah, like, with the extra Trundle now, it just means we can instantly watch her. So if our opponent taps out of mana next turns to try to kill our Trundle, for example, we can play 4 Ice Pillars, Lysandra, 0 mana Watcher, open attack, lethal. And by lethal, I obviously mean obliterate their deck, in which scenario the only way they survive is by top decking Fiora. And also to combine with that is that they also need to have something to survive the massive amount of damage. So here the Vile Feast would have actually killed the Fiora, but that's another story. So here, as you can see, our opponent is really looking to get things done. And so here they play the Unyielding, and again, I'm honestly at this point not even sure why they chose to go for that play last turn instead of, you know, just playing the Unyielding. I'm not really sure what they were hoping. Obviously, it's kind of not a great play either way, because the Vengeance kind of just cut their game plan short, and now in this position, we are totally okay with an Invincible Fiora, because we can just obliterate their deck. And so as you see, it just takes a moment to play 4 Ice Pillars here. You obviously have to play all 4 Ice Pillars first, and before you play Lysandra, or else you won't have the mana to play your Ice Pillar, because that's how that works. And so now you get a 0 mana Watcher, and actually to top it all off here, what we should do is just obliterate the Fiora so that they can't even use combat tricks. Actually, yes, if you obliterate the Fiora here, it's even better, because right now, yes, you can pull the Fiora, and so they can't, like, for example, Judgment, because they don't have the mana for Fiora's riposte or any attack buffs, and they can't, it's impossible for them to do anything that will do 4 combat tricks basically. But here, if you play the obliterate, I mean, obviously this game is won. At this point, this game is won. But the cleanest way to finish it off would be to just entomb the Fiora here, because they have 0 blockers next turn, and they cannot, even if they top decked Fiora, they cannot even use Fiora's riposte, so they will, without fail, die to fatigue the following turn. It's literally mathematically impossible for them to even survive fatigue if you entomb. So you don't even have to think about what cards they could possibly have in their deck. It's just the cleanest way. It's a win no matter what. I just want to emphasize that it is the slightly cleaner way, basically. This is already winning for sure, but if I were to recommend it, the reason I would say it is simply because this way you don't even have to think about what could be in their deck. It's just impossible. I hope that makes sense. Like, maybe I'm probably overstating it at this point, but I just you know, want to point out that it's impossible. Now, obviously it doesn't matter. We have this as a counter to anything he could have, whatever, and even if we had nothing in our hand, he's gonna lose. Like, I mean, I guess they could top deck the riposte plus have harsh winds. I mean, even a miracle wouldn't save them. It's just ridiculous. But yeah. So the key here is obviously the timing the Vengeance, not playing entreats right away. Our opponent shouldn't be going for such ridiculous plays like that. Maybe their deck just sucks, probably that too. Also understanding how to prevent your opponent's win conditions, just very, you know, very simple stuff, nothing crazy. Obviously, you know, I just wanted to emphasize a few things here and there, but now that this game is finished, I hope it was useful for low elo players. But now let's go to the other game, which was shown here. I'll share it once. Make sure that is aligned, actually. So I'll just go over it very quickly. So here, this is a game with Fiora Shen versus Kindred Nasus. As you can see, also a low elo game. And so here, you obviously want to be finding your units that are 3 and 3 mana, especially, and not 5 mana. So here he didn't see that. He didn't find it. But you obviously, optimally, you want to be drawing Fiora Shen every game. But River Shaper turn 3 helps too, and just pretty much things that make you allow you to have units. And so in this position, if he has to pass turn 3, it's going to be really bad. So he's really praying to draw something by turn 3 that he can play, and unfortunately for him, he doesn't. But fortunately for him, his opponent's curve doesn't end up punishing him too much. So if you see here, obviously up to here, there's nothing he could have done, as is evident. So obviously you take this Noblify, you have nothing else to spend your mana on. Why not prevent him from having more options and more ways to win? And so you'll notice something in this position. Our opponent actually passed, well, open attack, and then here, now I'm not our friend here chose to play River Shaper, and you should just play Shen, because Shen is more mana efficient. Shen has 5 health. They're not going to be able to use any spell that threatens Shen. They can't even Vengeance. And you have a second Shen, so it's easier to replace. And the River Shaper only has 2 health, so you might actually have to do some things to save it, which you may as well do next turn when you have 5 mana, instead of doing it in the opposite order and just having 1 less mana next turn. Which, while not greatly concerning, there's just no reason to, because the thing is, you're gonna want to have Shen no matter what. Whereas if you play River Shaper, you commit to playing Shen. If you play Shen and top deck Fiora, you can play Fiora. If you top deck Screeching Dragon, you can play Screeching Dragon. You also just have 1 more mana. There's not really any reason at all to play this River Shaper here. Unless he was planning to single combat last turn, but there's no reason to do that, because you're gonna want your spell mana for your combat anyway, and then you can always single combat after. So here he draws a free spell, and our opponent triggers the Kindred. So now you should immediately say, oh look, your Kindred is triggered, but I don't care. I'm just gonna sharp size single combat. It's gonna kill the Kindred, it's gonna draw me a spell, it's gonna prevent my River Shaper from dying. Just instantly snipe the Kindred, say I don't have to deal with any of these shenanigans. You have 3 mana, nothing threatening at all. Worst case scenario, the absolute worst case scenario obviously is Quicksand. That goes without saying. But the decks with Kindred and Nasus, for example, rarely run Quicksand. And the reason for that is because their curve is much lower, and they play a lot of units, and most of their slay comes from killing their own board and fast speed spells, so they don't really care so much about combat tricks. Most of their combat tricks basically relies on things like Caretaker and the Saplings and stuff like that. And also, the thing is, your River Shaper is going to die for free anyway. If they do happen to have Quicksand, you're not really going to have much say about that. Now, if you're really, really scared of Quicksand, if you really think they have Quicksand, for example, if they weren't necessarily Kindred Nasus, and they were a deck where you assume they do have Quicksand, what you can do is single combat into the Reaper or the Butcher. But I think you still just go for the Kindred, because you're going to have to kill the Kindred sooner or later. You just don't have the units to be able to survive the onslaught of Kindred. If they have the way to basically save Kindred multiple times, you lose no matter what. So actually, it connected, and so our opponent, I'm not sure what our opponent's list is. Obviously, it seems to be either bricked or suboptimal. Obviously, the Noblify is definitely quite nice. The fact that they basically passed round 4 because they couldn't draw cards, presumably because they couldn't draw from Noblify, was quite helpful. And so our opponent clearly had a useless hand and surrendered, but It's important to note that it very easily could have been much more devastating if they had a worse curve because we passed 3 turns. But as long as that sharp sight single combat connected, which it was very likely to, you're in a extremely commanding position, and in fact our opponent did surrender. Anyways, I hope that was helpful. Obviously this was pretty basic, but you know, just wanted to share. It was a quick game, and also have a good day. Actually, yeah, okay, I'll leave everything else for the next videos. See you guys.